The whole top of the page, not including the last box. Hey, I'm sorry, say it again.
This week will be Erwin's Yahrzeit, so
May-
I will sponsor the
Thank you
class.
very much. What's his
Saturday.
Hebrew name?
Yisroel Michal
Ben.
Ben Moshe Elia.
May his soul be elevated. Thank you very much. He's a very
Amen.
special man. I liked him a lot. A very easy, good smile.
Yes, special. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he was a Knicks fan?
A Knicks fan. That's he's supposed to be a Knicks fan. I'm
Oh,
from New
right.
York. I'm from New
That
York. What's with you?
Okay.
sounds like Shmuel. I think Shmuel's on.
Yeah, I'm on, yeah.
What then is it supposed to be?
A Yankee fan also.
A Yankee fan is fine. It's good.
Yes.
I had one time. I had a I had a woman sold a I don't know. I think a Chicago Cubs yarmulke or something. I said, look, if you're going to be an LA Dodger fan, I can't have complaints. You live in Los Angeles, but Chicago, what's that have to do? Either Yankees or the Dodgers, not nothing else. So she was very sweet. She sold me a Yankee one. All right. I'm sorry? No. She made she sold a little Yankee out there. All right. That's what we're doing. Relax. All right.
Say something. Say relax. Else. I'm just here to say. Vague, go. Was I what? No. So if I don't catch, I wouldn't learn what I have to learn. And you want to go too fast. And I'll say it again. Go too fast. Very vague.
All righty. Welcome, everybody. Believe I'm trying to help you, not hurt you. But sometimes the hurt can be a help too. Okay, this week's Parsha's Vayechi. Vayechi is the last portion in Chumash Shemais in the book of Genesis, the first of the 5 books of the Torah. Has only 85 verses, no commandments, but has a lot going on in it, which we're going to talk about. Chapter 47, verse 28 through chapter 50, verse 26, 268 in the Stone edition of the Art Scroll Chumash. So the first thing I'm going to point out is I'm going to show you a book that you're not familiar with. It's called the Tikkun. This is a book that has a photocopy of the Torah scroll. Torah scroll is handwritten by a scribe with howdy. Hey, well, signage sheet is around somewhere. Here it is. The Torah scroll is handwritten by a scribe with ink and quill on parchment. Okay, so that's a very, very, very big job, and you have to know what you're doing to be able to write it. It's very time consuming. It could take a scribe probably a year to write a Torah scroll. The Torah scroll has the 5 books of Moshe, has the books of Bereshis, Genesis, Shemos, Exodus, Vayikra, Leviticus, Bamidbar, Numbers, and Devarim, Deuteronomy, all handwritten in the Torah. Now, the Torah reader, thank you. I gave you a Parsha fact? Okay. The Torah reader has to be able to read it, even though there are no vowels and no periods and no cantillation. That's the notes of how to read it. So it takes practice. So here there's a book that has, on one hand, the photocopy of the Torah scroll. On the other hand, it has the photocopy again, but it adds the vowels and the connotations and everything in it. Does that understand what I just said? Is it clear? Yeah. So what the person who's practicing, he'll practice on this side that has it, and then go to this side and practice it without the vowels and cantillations, so that he can read it in the Torah that way. Is everyone with me so far? If you don't understand, say so. Hello? Yeah? Okay, everyone with us. Okay. So now one of the things that the Torah has is little breaks in the Torah for many reasons, but one of them is a break between one portion and the next portion. So 2 weeks ago was Miketz that ended here, and then you notice a little space. Can everyone see it? So that's Vayigash. Here, this week in the Torah, there's no separation at all between Vayechi, this week's portion, and Vayigash, last week's portion. Like I said, every time there's a portion, there's always going to be some sort of separation in the Torah. The separation serves several purposes, which we're not going to get into now. But here's another example. This is the end of Vayeshev and Miketz. Here Vayeshev ends, then there's a whole blank space, and then Miketz begins on the next line. But this week, there's no space. It's the only portion of the Torah that doesn't have a space between last week's and this week's.
The Rabbi does when you go Bereshit and you go to Exodus.
Yes, there's a bigger space there.
There's a bigger space there?
Yes. You want, I can show it to you. So here's the end of Bereshis, Genesis, which is Vayechi, the last Vayechi, and then there's a big space, and then starts Shemos. So there's a big, larger space. And it's a different chumash from a different book. So the question is, why is there no break? So Rashi, the premier commentary of the Torah, gives us two answers. Reason number one is that with Yaakov's death, that's when things were getting difficult for the Jewish people in Egypt, and their hearts were like closed. Their eyes and their hearts were closed because there's a lot of problems. Things were getting worse in the Egyptian exile. That's one reason. And the second reason is that Yaakov wanted to reveal to the tribes when the final redemption would come. When would the Messiah, Mashiach, come? And Hashem made that he should forget it and not be able to reveal it. So, I'm sorry? One of the reasons that some of the commentaries say is because the Jewish people realized how long the exile would be, that they would be very, very down and very disheartened. And this way, we have hope that it should always be, and hopefully soon in our days it'll be. But so Rashi gives us two interpretations why Vayigash, last week's portion, of Vayechi are right next to each other. There's a little space because it's a different word, but other than that, there's not the usual spacing that I showed you is in the Sefer Torah, in the Torah scroll. Everybody with me so far?
Predict when they come. That's another question I'm asking. How would anybody predict?
No, it wasn't a matter of prediction. It wasn't Yaakov making his own prediction. It was based upon prophecy, what God would tell him. God knows. God knows. God knows everything.
Yeah, but he didn't reveal it to anyone, so.
But Yaakov did know it, and he didn't want him to reveal it. So that's why he took it away from him and didn't allow him to reveal it. And that's one of the reasons why the portion is closed. So the Parsha begins, and Yaakov lived in the land of Israel 17 years. And 17 is the same numerical value as the word tov, which means, anyone? Good. Because there were good years for Yaakov, because the divine presence was with him. When he was sad because he thought his son had died, Yosef, the divine presence cannot rest with somebody who is sad. And his divine presence left him for 22 years. Yaakov is Jacob, yes. The divine presence left him. But when Yosef was revealed to be alive, then the divine presence came back. And he was happy, and therefore the divine presence could rest with him. And think about it for a minute. I say this, I like focus on this, because I think it's an important lesson for all of us. We all have harder days. Take it, whatever you like. We all have hard days sometimes. Imagine Yaakov, who was able to talk to God almost at will, and then the divine presence leaves him. You'd think, what would happen then? He's just not as good, not just as observant, not doing the right thing he's supposed to do because he's feeling distant from God. But Yaakov consistently continued to serve the Almighty as if God's presence isn't here because I'm not happy. Okay, I lost my son, and the ramifications of that were very, very great spiritually, but I got to do what I got to do. What's the proof that he didn't falter in any which way? Because when he was happy, the divine presence came back. Had he messed up and not done things right, the divine presence wouldn't have come back just because he was happy. It came back because he maintained his spiritual level in spite of not feeling connected to the Almighty. And that's a very important idea for us to understand, that happiness is a beautiful thing, and that does give us a divine connection, but that alone doesn't make it. You have to be a vessel of holiness. And Yaakov was that vessel, even when he was disconnected because of his sadness about his son Yosef. Again, if there's any question about what I'm saying, feel free to ask. So Yaakov lives there, and yes.
Oh, is the father and Joseph was the son?
That's correct.
I thought these children.
Okay. That's why it's called the Jewish Learning Exchange. You learn stuff. So Yaakov is getting old. He's
Does they give their age when they die?
yes, it does. The Torah does. It's not they, it's the Torah, it's God. He was already 147 years old. And it was coming close to his death, so he called Yosef. And he says, if you can do me a favor, promise me.
He's asking the son?
Yes, he's asking his son Yosef.
Before he died.
Before he dies. And do a chesed ve'emes. And you know what the word chesed means?
Yeah.
Love and kindness. And emes means truth. So what does the two words come together? Chesed ve'emes. Truth and loving kindness. They don't seem to be related to each other, but they are. And let me give you some examples. Sometimes we do someone a favor and we are expecting a favor in return. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It's okay to do it. It's not maybe for the most perfect reason, but it's okay. But a chesed shel emes is a a loving kindness of truth where you can't make any expectations. And when a person dies and you do a loving kindness with him, can they pay you back in this world? No. So that's a real chesed.
But he does something for Joseph. He blesses his children.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and that, so there is
Yes.
some return right there, and
That's
that
a separate
same
issue.
it's in the Siddur for Shabbat, every Shabbat we do.
Yes. But he blesses his children. It's a separate issue. He's going to bless all of his children. He's going to bless the 12 tribes we're going to find in this week's Parsha. He blesses all of his kids. So, but he's not going to be able, after he does the love, again, he's assuming he's going to do the loving kindness because Yosef said he will do it. But once he does the loving kindness, Yaakov can't pay him back in this world. Right? So that's a chesed shlemis. And by the way, there's a beautiful mitzvah called Chevra Kedisha, which means a holy group. And the Chevra Kedisha are people who volunteer to prepare the body for proper Jewish burial. And that's a very big mitzvah. And now there's a mortuary with that name, but that's the name of the business. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people who volunteer for any Jewish mortuary where they prepare the body for proper Jewish burial, which is a very... Now, what...
No, right?
Let me finish, please. Now, sometimes the mortuary will have to hire people to do it if there's nobody to volunteer for a particular thing. But every city has volunteers to do it for people who pass away, especially people that they know, even if they don't know. My son volunteers for people he doesn't even know. And every mortuary has volunteers that prepare the body for death. Again, they have to have backup that if there isn't somebody who's volunteering, that they have people that they do pay for it. But as a general rule, and this is a very, very important subject, I'm going to give you a very important article to take about cremation versus burial. In Judaism, we are very strongly against cremation. It's not good for the soul. It's not good for the body. It's not good for the family. It's not good for anybody. And this is a great article that helps us understand that. But I'm going to give it to you. And if you have family members that are interested in cremation, please talk to them about it, how it's much better to not better, but it's the proper way, the Jewish way is to have a proper Jewish burial. And the article will give you some information about that. I had a beautiful story several years ago. A woman called me. She said she's dying of a fatal disease and she wants to cremate. Is that allowed by Jewish law? And I told her absolutely not. And I explained it to her why, talked to her about it. I sent her a book about it, written by the author of this article, by the way, the Ron Kornbluth. And I don't know. And I didn't hear anything till a few months later. The daughter called me and says, my mom died and she bought a plot in the cemetery and she asked if you could officiate. I had never met this woman before, but I was very touched by it. And I did officiate by her funeral and she was buried in the ground like Jewish law states. So Chesed Shalemis is a loving kindness of truth, which is a very beautiful idea that there are people in communities that volunteer. In every major Jewish community, there are people who volunteer to give the proper respect to a Jewish body, and it's done very beautifully, and how it's done with a lot of respect. There's special garments that are put onto the deceased, and the body is washed and purified. It's a very very special thing. My father, blessed memory, was in charge of one of these, and if someone would die, he would call the volunteers and see who we could get to take it. And it's men for men and women for women, so it's done very very beautifully.
It's a male.
It's a male, then men take care of it, and if it's a woman, women take care of
I
it.
didn't know that.
That's why it's called the Jewish language exchange. You learn stuff.
This is my favorite part of the class.
About death, okay.
No, the going over the Torah and everything, the Parsha of the week,
You're welcome.
not this in particularly,
All right,
but it's good to educate yourself.
100%. Okay.
But Yaakov gets involved and stays in Egypt for about 30 days, then travels another like some.
We're gonna hold on. Hold your hosen. Hold your pants. We're gonna get there. We're gonna do it. So what's Yaakov's chesed shalemus? What does he want? He wants Yosef to promise that he's not going to be buried in Egypt. He wants to be buried back in the land of Israel. Why? Anyone have an idea?
Next to his parents.
Number one, he wants to be in the cave of Machpelah, the place where Adam and Eve are buried, and Avraham and Sarah, and Yitzchak and Rivka, and Leah is buried there, and he wants to be there. That's number one. Number two, he doesn't want to be left in Egypt, because in Egypt he's going to be made into a deity, because of him the hunger stopped earlier. And he doesn't want people to worship him. In America, the closest we have to this is people still going to Elvis's Elvis's place of burial, or people make a whole to-do. There's a cemetery not too far away from here called Hollywood Forever. So people go to famous Hollywood stars there. Though I will tell you, I did. I had to officiate at a funeral there, and I saw Mel Blanc's tombstone. Does anyone know who Mel Blanc was? No, it was a comedian, but he has many voices, and he did many voices, including Bugs Bunny. And his tombstone, not a Jewish way of writing a tombstone, but his tombstone says, "That's all, folks," and it was. Very revealing. It's a discussion for another time. Maybe we'll talk about it, but this was an interesting thing. But in any event, he wants him to promise him, and Yosef does promise him that he will not be buried in Egypt, that he will take him to the land of Israel. And Yosef had the power because he was the viceroy, and he swore to his father that he would do that. Yosef gets a message. Okay, but I do want to talk before I go ahead about another interpretation of chesed shalemus, and this is a very, very important idea, very relevant to today. And I'll pick an obvious, silly example. Loving kindness is a beautiful thing, but not all the time is it a loving kindness. I'll give you an example. The Gaza flotilla that were bringing aid to Gaza. Sounds like a nice thing. Who would be against that? But the truth of the matter is, A, their motivation wasn't pure because their motivation was to go against the Israelis. B, the amount of food that they had on all the ships to combine was less than 1 day's of shipment of food that the Israelis send in. And 3, what's it going to help anybody? They'll land there, and Gaza doesn't have a port, and Hamas will take it away and let their people suffer because it looks better in the press that way. It's just, so when you think of a chesed, when you think of a loving kindness, it has to be a true loving kindness. If you give a guy money on the street so that he could buy drugs, you want to give him food? Fine, that's great. But giving him money that he could buy drugs, that's not a real chesed. So we need to be really look at the loving kindness that we do to make sure it is a true loving kindness and not just something to make us feel good. It's a good feeling. I did the right thing. I did something nice, but is it really nice? And again, there are many examples we could go into, but the concept that was a very, very important idea that we should be aware of. That's Rosh Hashanah Hirsch's interpretation on it. And I think it's really important. Okay. And Yaakov is very grateful. He bows to the head of his bed because someone who's sick, the divine presence rests above his bed. And he's grateful to the Almighty that he won't be buried here, and his bed is complete because he has all of his sons and their families, and everybody's doing the right thing, and it's great. After a while, Yosef hears his father is getting sicker, and he brings his two sons, Menashe and Ephraim, to him. And Yaakov sits up in bed to give him honor, because even though he's the father, but he's still the viceroy. And he sits in his bed, and he talks to Yosef about that the land of Canaan would belong to him, that God promised it to him. And then he says the following idea: your two sons, Ephraim and Menashe, I want them to be like my sons. Now, who are Ephraim and Menashe? How are they related to Yaakov?
The Egyptian one.
Yeah, but and it's not what I asked. I asked what's their relationship to Yaakov? Grandsons.
Grandchildren.
They're the grandchildren. So he's making them like his sons. So he's counting them like part of the tribes. And that's going to be very interesting, because what's going to happen is there are going to be times where Levi is not going to be in the mix. For example, when they're traveling, which we'll get to another time, and there's still going to be 12 tribes, because instead of having Yosef, there's going to be Ephraim and Menashe. So Ephraim and Menashe are going to be considered like the tribes of everybody else. So I'm going to read English, and then I'm going to point out something that sounds glaring. And now your two sons who are born to you in the land of Egypt, before my coming to you in Egypt, shall be mine. Ephraim and Menashe shall be mine, like Reuven and Shimon. But any progeny born to you after them shall be yours. They will be included under the names of their brothers with regard to their inheritance. So in the land of Israel, Yosef didn't have just one portion. Actually, Ephraim had a portion and Menashe had a portion. So, and if Yosef would have any other children, they'd be under Ephraim and Menashe. But as for me, when I came from Padan, Rachel died in the land of Canaan on the road, while there was still a stretch of land to give to Ephrath, and I buried it on the road, which is Beis Lechem, to Ephrath, which is Beis Lechem. He brings in the story about Rachel. What does that have to do with what is this whole discussion is all about? Does everyone understand the question? He's talking about his two sons, and they're going to be like the tribes to me, and the grandchildren will be like the tribes to me. And by the way, Rachel died on the road, and I buried her in Beis Lechem. What does he bring? Who didn't get a portion?
Grandchildren.
Ephraim and Menashe are the grandchildren.
Yeah, just those two.
Just those two. If he has any more, then they're going to be under Ephraim and Menashe.
What would they be given? They should be buried in Israel. Is that what it was?
No. We're talking about the land of Israel is divided up into the tribes. So all the tribes get a section of the land. So now he's bringing in about Rachel, and that he buried her by the road. Like, why does that have to do with it? And the commentaries, and many, we're going to get to it later on as well, we'll see that there's going to be many verses that of the Torah that we can't understand without the oral Torah. The oral Torah was what was given. The written Torah are like the notes, and the oral Torah expands on it and gives us details that we didn't see in the text. In other words, if you look at my notes of this class, you get a lot of information, but you wouldn't know everything because it's just the notes. So the written Torah is the basis, the foundation of it, but the oral Torah, which was passed down from generation to generation, eventually became the Mishnah and the Talmud and the Medrash. All of that was given at Mount Sinai orally and eventually written down later on. So the commentators explain very beautifully what happened here. Because Yosef, you may be wondering, why am I asking you to take me from all the way from Egypt all the way up to Hebron to bury in the cave of Machpelah, and your mother I didn't do that to. I buried her on the road by Beis Lechem. And the answer is because the Almighty commanded me to do that because one day the Jewish people were going to be leaving Israel, being chased out by the Babylonians when they destroyed the first temple, and the Jewish people will stop by the tomb of Rachel. And they will pray and ask her to intercede on behalf of the Jewish people. Let her soul in heaven intercede and speak to God and ask him to allow the Jewish people to one day return to the land. And in fact, the souls of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov pleaded to the Almighty after the Jews went into exile, after the destruction of the first temple, and the Almighty said no. But when Rachel, the matriarch, Rachel, pleaded on behalf of the Jewish people, and she said, look, I gave up my husband for my sister Leah, she shouldn't be embarrassed, so are you going to be more upset at the Jewish people that they made mistakes in idol worship? And God will tell Rachel, I will listen to you. Your prayer I'm going to take, and the Jewish people will come back to the land of Israel. And in fact, they eventually did and built the second temple. So this is a very powerful, powerful idea that Rachel was crying for her children, and the Almighty told her, told Yaakov, bury her here on the road by Beis Lechem, because that's the place, the road that the people are going to take when they leave. Thousands of years later, when they're leaving Israel into servitude to the Babylonians, they're going to stop and pray there, and her prayer in heaven will be heard. Very powerful idea. At the end of the class, I'm going to share a beautiful song with you that talks about this.
So we know where Rachel is there, right?
Kever Rachel. It's in Beis Lechem, Bethlehem. I find it to be the most moving place to pray in Israel. That's a personal thing. It's a very special place.
But then why don't we know, like, for example, when Joseph is buried?
We do. We know Joseph is buried. Yes.
Do we know like Judah, and do we know like
Some? I think we do know the tribes. They're not. People don't go there as regularly as to Kever Rachel or to Hebron. But it's amazing. It's that we have these places that we can go to pray.
Far away is Bethlehem from
Yerushalayim? I don't remember exactly. It's probably like 20 minutes, half an hour. It's not. It is in Israel. The Palestinian Authority is right near there, but unfortunately they made huge walls and security, and it's a whole thing there. But so we're going to talk about Rachel. So that's why it's brought into here. And don't have complaints to me that I'm asking you to bury me in the land of Israel and schlep me all the way up from Egypt, when I did not do the same to you, but realized I didn't do the same because God commanded me not to do it, so that you would be in the right place at the right time when the Jewish people were going to be exiled after the destruction of the first temple. Everybody with me? Okay. So Ephraim and Manasseh come for a blessing, and Yaakov is so happy that he got to see him before he dies, and he does something unusual. Yaakov switches his hands. He puts his right hand on Ephraim and the left hand on Manasseh. Now, Manasseh was the older one, so really Manasseh should have, when he's blessing them, he should put his right hand on the older one and the left hand on the younger one, but Yaakov switches it. And Yosef sees this, and he thinks his father is blind. He doesn't realize that Manasseh is the older one, and Yaakov says, don't worry, I know. Because even though Manasseh will have great people coming out of him, Ephraim will have even greater people, and that included in that is Joshua, the one who will lead the Jewish people after Moshe. So since he's going to be from the tribe of Ephraim, Yaakov put his right hand on top of Ephraim rather than on the head of Manasseh. And by the way, it's very, very interesting. Going back to Yaakov's life a little bit, the power of prayer. What did Leah daven for? What was Leah's prayer? Anyone have an idea what she was always praying for?
think she was praying for Rachel to have children.
That was one thing she prayed for, correct? But even before that, what was she praying for? She realized that she was not the one that Yaakov picked, right? Rachel was the one that Yaakov had wanted to marry, and Lava made the switch and made Yaakov marry Leah and then Rachel, right? So she was always praying for a relationship with her husband. And what was Rachel always praying for? To have children, right? So what ends up happening? God is the ultimate CPA, celestial payback accountant. Rachel is the one who ends up having her own burial place, but she's known as the mother Rachel, and people go and pray by her graveside all the time. And Leah is the one who ends up being buried next to Yaakov for all eternity. So Leah is close to Yaakov, and again is buried next to him in the cave of Machpelah in Hebron. And Rachel is the mother of the Jewish people. She eventually has Yosef and Binyamin, but she's like the mother because people go pray to her and call her Mama Rachel, Mother Rachel. Okay, so here you see that the power of prayer. She wanted to have a close relationship with her husband Yaakov, because again she was really second fiddle because he wanted to marry Rachel, but because of Lavan's trick, so she ends up being buried with him eternally, and Rachel is buried separately, but the Jewish people go to her as Mother Rachel all the time. And one of the things he says he says a beautiful prayer, Hamalach Hagoel Osim Mikol. We say it every night in the prayer before going to sleep. It's chapter 12, chapter 48, verse 12. It says, it's a very beautiful prayer, and I'll just read it to you. May the angel who redeems me from evil bless the lads, and may my name be declared upon them, and the names of my forefathers Abraham and Isaac. May they proliferate abundantly like fish within the land. And one of the things Yaakov said is, the Jewish people's children should bless their children to be like Ephraim and Manasseh, which is very interesting. What do we say by girls? That they should be like Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, all of the four matriarchs. But by the boys, we don't say they should be like Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, but we say they should be like Manasseh and Ephraim. Why is that? Well, number one, Manasseh and Ephraim got along with each other. And even though Ephraim got the blessing of the right hand, Manasseh wasn't jealous. He accepted that. And two, they were two sons raised in exile, and they still maintained their Jewish values and Jewish lifestyle in spite of being in Egypt. And since, unfortunately, Jewish history were mostly in exile the past 2,000 years, Yaakov wanted that the Jewish children should bless their sons to be like Ephraim and Manasseh, who got along and also managed to survive even in an alien society, which is a powerful, beautiful, powerful idea.
Rabbi, why don't in the Torah there is the other blessings? Why just
Which other blessings?
Because you said he blessed Judah's sons.
Yes, not Judah's sons, because again, Ephraim and Manasseh were considered his tribe. So we're having the rest of the Parsha is going to deal with the blessings he gave to each of the tribes. Each tribe. We have it right here. We're going to talk about it.
Did you say Benjamin married?
I didn't say Benjamin married anybody. I don't know who Benjamin was married to. We're talking about Binyamin was married to somebody, and Yosef was married. Each of the tribes were married to somebody. Now, when it comes to the blessings of the tribes, we're going to see that all of the tribes were called, gather, and I want to bless you. Now, the blessings he told them were a combination of chastising them for mistakes that they made plus blessings, plus prophetic vision of what's going to happen in the future. And again, here is a classic example of, take a look here. I'm just going to show you the text, how it looks. There's a little bit of text and so much commentary, because from the text alone, we would not know the meaning of what it is. We need the oral tradition. So there's just a lot of things going on. And he calls each of them individually, and he blesses them individually and collectively. So let's talk about for a second Yehuda. I'm going to read it in English. Yehuda, your brother shall acknowledge your hand, will be at your enemy's nape. Your father's sons will prostrate themselves to you. A lion cub is Judah. From prey, my son, you elevated yourself. He crouches, lies down like a lion, and an awesome lion. Who dares rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from him, nor a scholar from among the descendants, until Shiloh arrives, and he will be an assemblage of nations. He will tie his donkey to the vine, and the vine branch his donkey's fowl. He will launder his garments in wine, and his robe in blood of grapes, red-eyed from wine, and white-toothed from milk. Very poetic, but it's very hard to understand what it means, and that's why we need the commentators for it. So I'm going to just give you a few examples of what it means. Interestingly enough, a very beautiful idea is white tooth from milk. Well, yeah, milk is good for your teeth because it has calcium in it. But white tooth from milk, the commentaries say that, what's better than giving somebody a cup of milk? White tooth. You're giving them a smile. You give people a smile, that's even better than giving them a cup of milk. Being friendly to people, that's even better. Yisachar and Zevulun. It says Yisachar shall settle by the seashores. This will be ship's harbor, and the last border will reach Zidon. Yisachar is a strong-boned donkey. He rests between the boundaries. And Yisachar and Zevulun have a very interesting relationship. Yisachar is going to carry the burden of Torah. He's going to be Torah. It's going to have many Torah scholars. And Zevulun is going to have the business. He's going to be traveling back and forth with ships, and they're going to have a very special deal. Zevulun will split all of his money with Yisachar, and Yisachar will split all of his Torah, the merit of his Torah learning, with Zevulun. And one is not verbal, one is spiritual, and one is monetary. And they have a deal this way, that they're going to work together, and Zevulun will support Yisachar and physically, financially, and Yisachar will support Zevulun spiritually.
So the Levites were not the ones who carried the Torah?
The Levites that's a good question. The Levites were like that also, but the Levites had a different job. They're going to be helping in the temple. Now, of course, Zevulun also studied Torah, but they split what they did. Done, it says, will be like a snake, and that doesn't sound so good. Will be a serpent on the highway, a viper by the path. I'm sorry? Right. So what does it mean? And it makes the riders fall backwards. And the rabbis explain what that's referring to is that Shimshon Hagibor, Shimshon the powerful, will be a descendant of Dan. And I'm jumping ahead to the crux of the story. When Shimshon is captured, if a snake wants to get to the rider, how does the snake get to the rider? The horse is high up. He bites the snake, and the snake falls, and then he can get to the rider. So Shimshon, Samson, was the one who, when he was captured, he pulled the building down on the Philistines. And so that's what it's alluding to with the snake, that he protected the Jewish people all the time, and pulled them down, pulled the building down to get them.
What's his name? Simpson?
Shimshon Hagibur, Samson.
Samson.
You've probably heard
Yeah,
Samson and Delilah, right? That's it, unfortunately, yeah. But story for another time. What that story is about. And he blesses all of the children, and he passes away, and Yosef goes to the king and says, I promised him that I have to bury him in Canaan. And they travel, and the tribes carry Yaakov's body like the Jewish people will be traveling in the desert. With Levi, Yosef are not carrying. Yosef is the king, so he doesn't carry. But if his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, carry, and they come to, and it becomes a whole big procession. People from Egypt, other people are coming. The great Yaakov has died, and they carry him to the cave of Machpelah, and lo and behold, there's someone blocking the way. Esav, the old antagonist of Yaakov, is there, and he says, hey, well, why are you taking the last spot in the cave of Machpelah? That's for me. Yitzchak, my father, gave it to me. And the Shvatim says, no, you guys signed a contract that the land of Israel and this last spot belongs to Yaakov, and you get Yitzchak's money. And Esav said, who said that? And said, we have a document. Where's the document? It's in Egypt. So they send Naphtali, who could run fast, to Egypt to get the documentation. But meanwhile, there was the son of Dan, one of the tribes, Hushim, was deaf. And he says, what's going on here? Who's blocking the road of the holy Yaakov to be buried? This guy, Esav? And he goes over and he whacks him and knocks off his head, and his head rolls into the cave of Machpelah. And they finish the funeral. Now, what's the deeper significance of Esav's head falling into the cave of Machpelah? Because Esav's head represented his potential. He potentially could have been greater than Yaakov had he used the talents he had for the good, but unfortunately he didn't. So his body was a sinful body, so his body doesn't make it in. But his head, which shows his potential, like I said, he could have been greater, because Yitzchak wasn't the fool when Yitzchak liked Esav, because he saw his potential. But unfortunately, he squandered it, and Yaakov is finally buried. And now the brothers are a little bit afraid, will Yosef take revenge on them now for the fact that he was sold? And Yosef reassures them, no, don't worry. It was all part of God's plan. Don't worry. You might have intended me for harm, but God intended me for good in order to accomplish everything that I had to do, to keep everybody alive. And I will continue to sustain you and your young ones. And he comforted them and spoke to their heart. And Yosef told the brothers, and now, of course, generations came out of Yosef's children as well. And he said, I'm about to die, but God will surely remember and bring you up out of this land, to the land that he swore to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And as a matter of fact, he gave them a key words, pakod yifkod, remember, he will remember. Surely he will remember. And the Parsha concludes with Yosef saying, please remember to take my bones out of Egypt. I don't want to remain here. He didn't have the power to do that now, but when the Jewish people will leave, remember to take my bones along.
Can I ask a question?
You just asked one. You have one more left. All right, I'll let you have two. Go ahead.
If they go to Canaan at this time, why do they want to go back to Israel? That's one.
Why do you go back to Egypt, you mean?
Egypt.
Well, they have other families there. And the food, they needed the food from,
Well,
and Yosef was providing for them.
The
Yeah.
5 years of drought is over.
Right. But again, their family, Yosef was providing for them. And I don't know if Pari would let. Pari wasn't, this wasn't a democracy. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we decided to leave. They couldn't leave. And even Yosef had to get permission to take Yaakov out to be buried. So all the families remained in Egypt, but so they had to come back. But go ahead, and what's the second question?
Second question is, I was thinking, so we know where Avraham is buried, we know where Isaac is buried, we know where Yaakov is buried, but when it gets to Moshe, they we say, well, we don't know because he was going to be a deity. But you just said that Yaakov was going to be a deity.
A deity to the Egyptians. That Yaakov was worried about being a deity to the Egyptians. Moshe will be a deity for us, and so that's different. Yaakov didn't want the Egyptians to make him into a deity, and Moshe is not being buried, knowing the burial site is so not be a deity for the Jewish people. So Yosef says, please make sure when we leave that you should bury me, in the land. And the Egyptians did not want Yosef to leave because they saw great blessing that came from Yosef. So they took his bones and they threw it into the Nile River, and it sank in a metal casket into the bottom of the Nile River. And that's the end of the portion. And in Shul, what is and by the way, it's very interesting. Yaakov is buried, and the same day Esav dies, because there's a thing called Zelum Hazeh. There's good and evil, weight and counterweight. Esav represents evil, Yaakov represents good. Yaakov is being buried, Esav is not going to be around anymore. There'll be good and evil, but there'll be a balance of other people who carry that to that scale and carry on that battle. And we say at the end of the Torah reading, everyone stands up in the synagogue and we say, Chazak, Chazak, v'nis chazek, the bottom page 289. Chazak, Chazak, v'nis, be strong, and may we be strengthened. So a very profound story of the families of Yaakov. And I'd like to play a song for you that is just beautiful. It's worth your time. I'm going to give you the words so you can keep the words and see from them. There's a friend of mine named Abi Rottenberg, who's a very talented musician and singer, and he made some, I'm dating myself, records, tapes, CDs, MP3s called Journeys. And they're English songs, the Jewish, but with Jewish themes. And from Journeys 3, he made Mama Rachel, which means Mother Rachel. And I'm going to give you the words and I'm going to play it.
You want, okay, what's the Hebrew name for Benjamin? Benjamin?
Benjamin, yes. Okay. So the song goes through the story of Rachel, that on the wedding day she gave away the symbols to her sister. Those of you who are on Zoom and you would like a copy of the words, please call Shav at the office anytime and we'll gladly send it out to you.
Is there any name for Sophia in Hebrew?
Is there a name for what?
Sophia?
Sophia?
What is the name? Sophia is there?
I don't think it's a Hebrew name.
No. Sure.
Hang on a second, you'll hear it. The fellow who sings it is named Yaakov Shweki, has a beautiful, beautiful voice.
with the rising sun on her wedding day. She raised her eyes to the heavens, and she thanked Hashem for the man of truth.
God for Yaakov, the man of truth.
With she built the nation. But when nightfall came, destiny betrayed the bed concealing another. Yet a sister's shame and her shattered dreams took hold of her heart and her senses. Mama, rather cry for us again. Won't you shed a tear for your dear children? If you raise your sweet voice now, then the day will come. Mama, rather cry for us again. Won't you shed a tear for your dear children? Bizichutei v'shavah b'lev. In a roadside grave, she was laid to rest in solitude forever. But her voice gave hope to the broken hearts of her daughters and sons bound for exile. When her plaintive cry gave divine consent, a challenge to her maker, and the mercy of mere flesh and blood run deeper than yours, our creator. Mama, Rachel, cry for us again. Won't you shed a tear for your dear children? If you raise your sweet voice now, then the day will come. Mama, Rachel, cry for us again. Won't you shed a tear for your dear children? Bizichutei v'shavah b'lev. Now your voice is still as you heed the call of Mini Kohelet Mibechni. It's our Father's will, He who made us all. There we ask of you to define, yet to bright and shine, numb from pain and grief, remains forlorn and uncertain, clinging to the faith that it can be heard as it cries out to its mother.
Second side.
Mame, mame, amor, queremos tu crecer, oh, Raise your sweet voice now and stand to take
Is that Bethlehem? How do you say Bethlehem?
Beis Lechem in Hebrew.
Bethlehem.
Very powerful song. And part of it's based upon the great rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz, who escaped from the Holocaust to go to Shanghai with a whole yeshiva, moved to Israel. And he would pray by the cave of Rachel, and he would say, and he would cry out and said, Mama Rachel, Mother Rachel, cry for us. And his students asked him, Rebbe, and with all due respect, God told Rachel, stop crying, don't cry anymore, because I'm going to listen to you, and I will return the Jewish people to their homeland. And it did happen, right? The second, as I mentioned, the second temple. So he answered very beautifully. He said, a father can tell a child not to cry, but a child can tell a mother to cry. So we're asking our mother Rachel to cry for us now for the third the exile that we're in now, that should end as well. The song, I've heard it hundreds of times, but it moves me all the time. It's very, very, very powerful words, very powerful words. So that's Parshat Vayechi. Thank you for sponsoring Lili Nishmas, your special husband, and may his soul be elevated in the merit of our learning and our growth and our inspiration.
Well, we were indebted to you, Rabbi Czapnik, for
me.
So much. No, you opened up you expanded Erwin's Judaic world. It's so meaningful,
It was my pleasure and honor. Thank you. I appreciate the kind words. Any questions or thoughts or comments?
Oh, this was a nice part.
It's a nice parsha. So
learn, what it's all about.
Good. Yes.
Where does the idea of burying your dead in one day, not come from in Torah? Where is it in the oral Torah?
It's in the oral Torah, but the body is in transition, and it's best for the body to be buried as soon as possible because it doesn't want to stay in this world, in this in-between state.
Explain the embalming and all that.
Yeah.
Again, this was before the Torah was given, number one, and number two. For whatever reason, Yosef had to do that for Yaakov in Egypt. I guess maybe that's what they had to do there. I can't tell you a good reason why, but I guess it took time for him to be able to get him to get him up to Canaan, to get permission from Pharaoh to go. And the people of Egypt were mourning for him as well. So. but we try to do it as fast as possible. That's what we do today. We don't do embalming. We don't do, as I mentioned.
So in the Torah portion, I mean, the oral Torah portion, when Moshe is teaching the Jewish tribes, that does teach that they should bury within the day.
As soon as possible.
As
We
soon
try
as-
to do it. The only time we delay is if it's an honor for the person, like if a family member is far away and we want to get them to come in. So sometimes we'll delay for that.
Most there takes at least 3 or 4 days before they can bury you.
Not necessarily.
Never
In,
seen one-
in the religious community, try to do it fast. In Israel, they'll even do it midnight. You know what I'm saying? They don't wait. They don't wait. But around here, we try to do it as fast as possible. So
4 days to get
I'm sorry to hear that, but that's probably wasn't a religious cemetery. I don't know, whatever. That's unusual. Okay, we usually don't wait that much, unless it's like sometimes you have a weekend, whatever. All right, everyone have a great week. Any questions, thoughts, comments? Malka, take care. All the best. Diane,
Thank you.
Gershon, take care. Michelle, Shmuel, all the best. Have a great week, everybody.
Rabbi, I have to give
Gershon,
you,
where do you live, Gershon?
I live in Oak Park, Michigan, last 24 years.
All right, Bahatzlacha. You know the Gregs?
I sure do. That's amazing. That's the first priest people I stayed with when I moved there.
Send
That's
them my
amazing.
best. Take care, all the best. Take care.
Rabbi, I was gonna. You might have heard this, but I mean, Uncle Erwin, he would mention to me how much when he was learning by you, how much he progressed. He was. I could see the enthusiasm on his face.
Well, I used to pay him to say nice things, so I'm glad I got my money's worth. You know.
Yeah, it was really. I just would whenever we would talk about Torah, as he was progressing, he was just so much,
It was a
And the last
pleasure and
time
honor. It was a pleasure and
you
honor.
mentioned you mentioned also about Cave of Rachel, that one, the very spiritual place. So you might have heard the story, but Rabbi Chaim Shmulevich from the Mir, they say because the pasuk says they told Mama Rachel, the pasuk says she should stop crying.
Yeah, I mentioned that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I missed that. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
He said keep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Keep
all the
crying.
trouble.
Yeah.
Hashem should help his nation and.
Amen.
Okay, all the best. Thank you, Rabbi.
And
Thank
you
you,
too.
Rabbi.
Told us all the best. Feel good. Take
too,
care,
Zagi.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Gershon, for being on the class.
See
Yeah,
that?
no, that's I'm gonna win. That's well, at least we could do. So yeah, so
Yeah, very good. Take care. All the best.
very good and take care. Have a good week. Bye.